in Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the Record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Monday, the 22nd day of July 2019. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable weekend and that those of you who are on the roads, whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, a motorcyclist, operating any type of motorized vehicle on the roads of the Cayman Islands, we urge you to be extremely careful, ensure that you observe the rules of the road, and remember the life you save may be your own. For those of you who are celebrating a birthday today or who celebrated a birthday in the past 3 days, I want to wish you a belated happy birthday. Those of you celebrating today, a happy birthday, very happy birthday as well. Those of you who have lost loved ones, we want to extend our sincere condolences to you and hope and trust that your faith will help to guide you through these very challenging times. Those of you who are celebrating anniversaries, want to wish you a happy wedding anniversary, if you're celebrating a wedding anniversary as well. And in particular, I would like to mention Miss Sadie and Mr. Biggie Chalette of Tropical Gardens. Yesterday, they celebrated their wedding anniversary, 58 years of marriage together. That is a long, long time. You young folks out there, you want to listen to that. You know, love is still lasting. It can last a long, long time. For Miss Sadie and Mr. Biggie, yesterday it was 58 years. And again, we want to wish them many, many more happy anniversaries as well. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls. Normally, and this morning, it is that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at CANDW WhatsApp us on 925-3261, where we encourage you to send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman, a live stream. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning none other than MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. We will be talking about several topics, including the main one, which will be the bills that will be presented in our Legislative Assembly on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the 24th of July. And those bills are intended to further enhance Cayman's anti-money laundering and CFT regime in the Cayman Islands. We will talk about those bills. We will talk about what the ramifications are if those bills are not brought to the House and if we are not in compliance with the anti-money laundering regime as well. So, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, good morning, sir. Welcome back to For the Record.
Good morning to you, OC, and certainly to your listening audience this morning, those who are tuned in, hopefully making their way into work. A particular good morning to the constituents that I have the pleasure of serving in Prospect, who may also be tuned in. Always a pleasure to be in studios with you. Likewise, let me send my kind regards to Miss Susan in the production booth there, as well as to extend my congratulations, as you did, to Miss Sadie and Mr. Biggie Cholette. 58 years of wedded bliss, certainly something to be proud of, and I think you're absolutely right, particularly in speaking to the young people and suggesting that love is real and love can last. Yes. It is work, and you have to put effort into it. Like most things, you get out of it what you're prepared to put into it. But certainly, if you can dedicate yourself, 58 years is in fact attainable to you as well. You mentioned birthdays. I just want to throw in one birthday. A very good friend of mine, Pastor Louis Sully, celebrated his birthday, I think it was yesterday, and I want to extend a happy birthday to him and hope for many, many more to come.
Certainly. I think you want to mention an upcoming event in your constituency as well.
Yes, sir, I do. Certainly, I want to thank Radio Cayman for the public service announcements that have been airing, I think, since last week. The Premier, the Honourable Alden McLaughlin, and MLA for the constituency of Red Bay, and myself, MLA for the constituency of Prospect, will be hosting a public meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the Seafarers Hall. It will be a meeting hosted, joining us will be the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure to inform the constituents of Red Bay and Prospect, but also the wider audiences, on the planned roadworks that are both underway that will impact our constituencies, but will also impact many of the residents, particularly in the eastern districts. We see a number of road repaving works, a number of road markings being redone, some new signs being installed to help with the safety factor of residents entering the main highways. There's a great deal of work presently planned from the Hurley's roundabout heading east, which of course will pass Red Bay and Prospect. So tomorrow night's meeting will be an opportunity for constituents of Red Bay and Prospect and the wider Cayman Islands to join us to learn more about what those roadworks will consist of, and how those roadworks will impact motorists in both their morning and daily commutes, but also will provide the opportunity for feedback from constituents who may have some problem areas that they want to identify. I know that I've received some feedback, particularly in terms of the challenges that residents have entering and exiting Shamrock Road, better known as Spot Street, particularly from the speed of the roads and, of course, how difficult it is for the residents to maneuver in and out of their residence. So we'll talk about some of those things, how some of those improvements, the planned road improvements, will address that, as well as, again, solicit some feedback from the constituents themselves. The meeting will begin at 7 o'clock. Light refreshments will be made available. Again, we will have technocrats from the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure, in particular. The National Roads Authority will be on hand to present a demonstration and, again, to solicit feedback and comments from those who will be in attendance. Okay. So I would definitely encourage particularly residents of Red Bay and Prospect to come out tomorrow, but certainly any member of the public who has an interest in the road improvements that are presently underway, as well as an opportunity to see what is on the planning board, if you will, or as part of the plan.
Certainly. And you spoke of the road works that are being done on the Shamrock Road area, what we call Spot Street.
Yes, sir.
And I must say that it appears as if the National Roads Authority are trying to complete that work with the minimal of disruption to traffic, as possible, and it seems to be working fairly well. Now, of course, one of the other options would be working at night, but it means additional costs because you would probably end up having to pay additional wages because of those, ungodly hours that people would have to work.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the NRA, and if I can also include representatives from Island Paving. They have been doing a marvelous job of timing these road works with as little disruption, as you pointed out, as possible. They've done so, I think, satisfactorily during the day. But I will also point out that there have been occasions, particularly on Shamrock Road or Spot Street, where the work has, in fact, taken place in the evenings, particularly, I think, the last weekend in preparation for the beginning of the week. They worked on, I think, Saturday and Sunday night. So they've done some tremendous work. I know of the improvements, particularly that took place prior to Shamrock Road, but on the east-west arterial, which is better known as the Prospect Bypass, along what is called the Rex Crichton Boulevard, where we installed, first of all, we removed some offending road hedges in the Frank Hall Homes area that was obstructing visibility for both drivers exiting as well as those seeing vehicles exiting. We replaced the hedges and immediately put up a guardrail, obviously to protect the residents in the event of a traffic accident or otherwise. But I say that to point out the stellar work by the NRA and Island Paving, in particular, not so much working day and night, which they did, but in particular also not allowing things like rain to deter them from their work. They were working in the rain, getting the job done as quickly, as quick a time as possible without, putting anyone out. So I think the NRA and Island Paving, all of those involved in this process, should be congratulated for the excellent work that they are doing. Certainly asking for continued patience from road users, because these road improvements will improve our daily commute to and from Shamrock Road and all of the connecting areas thereof.
Certainly, and not to mention also probably increase the lifespan of your vehicles on the road as well.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's. I'll be honest. It's nice to be able to drive on a level, smooth piece of road. That certainly the shocks are very happy to receive those road works. But again, safety is the priority. Ensuring that the roads are properly marked, lit in certain areas. Certainly residents have already provided feedback that now that the road works have begun, they'd like to see some improvements on the lighting as we go forward. Certainly these are some of the areas that will be included in the overall plan. And again, I encourage residents of Red Bay and Prospect or the wider Cayman Islands to come out tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the Seafarers Hall to learn more about what is included in these plans, and of course to provide some feedback that they may have as well.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. Now when we return, we're going to start talking about those bills that will be presented to the Legislative Assembly on Wednesday. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the historical vignette series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas.
In 1904, Cayman Brac turtling captain and boat builder Daniel Jervis built a prototype Caymanian catboat named Terra, an obvious improvement on the previous canoe-style boats of the day. The Caymanian catboat was on average 16 feet long and drew no more than 8 inches of water. Painted in their distinctive catboat blue color, it provided effective camouflage when seen from below, permitting the crew to discreetly approach turtles.
Radio Cayman's Historical Facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
When you need stability, think Business of the Year.
Considering a new career opportunity, think Best Place to Work.
When dependability matters, think Outstanding Workforce.
In need of a reliable financial partner, think Bank of the Year.
When you seek excellence, think Cayman National.
No matter how many accomplishments we achieve, we always set the bar higher. That's why we are the most awarded bank in Cayman, and we are proud to be your
2018 Bank of the Year.
I just love the warm ocean air.
Yeah? Your car doesn't.
What you mean?
Looks like salt air is eating your bump alive.
Stop rust before it starts with Z-Bot Rust Protection from Vant Motors. The extreme heat, salt spray, and wet tropical weather can damage your vehicle and greatly decrease its value. But Z-Bot's patented formula protects your car's metal seams, joints, and other hidden areas. There's no better rust protection out there than Z-Bot. So book today and keep the rust away. Call or visit Vant Motors Body Shop on Walkers Road. Your only authorized Z-Bot service in Cayman is now available at Vant Motors.
They say cleaning your house never killed anyone, but why take chances? Spend your time doing what you love and leave the rest to Roper's Janitorial. Complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential with 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Take back your life and get the job done right the first time. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511.
Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
JN Money Transfer, in association with Roma United Sports Club, present the official Jamaica Independence celebrations on Friday, August 2nd. Daytime activities take place on Cardinal Avenue from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. with the best Jamaican food, arts and craft display, free sampling and free health checks. Don't miss the free lunch hour concert, plus lots of prizes and giveaways. Nighttime concert over at Crown Square on Eastern Avenue, featuring international reggae and dancehall superstar Wayne Marshall, alongside Paul Train, Dream Chasers dancers, plus lots of local performers. Come participate in the Kids Talent Contest, Best Dress Competition, Dance Contest, and Hot Wings Eating Contest. Music by DJ Marcus. Come out early to win a 40-inch TV, plus lots of giveaways and prizes. Admission is free. Sponsored by Popeyes, Best Dressed Chicken, Magnum, People's Choice Grocery, Superior Auto, Ideas Marketing, Kmart Hair and Beauty Supply, Danny's Auto, Breeze FM, and Radio Cayman.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. Again, before we go to those bills, Mr. Harris, one of our listeners has inquired as to whether or not there will be a live feed for those who can't attend your meeting tomorrow night.
Certainly want to thank that listener for that question. At present, OC, there are no plans for a live feed. We have talked about potentially providing video via Facebook Live on social media, but we haven't been able to confirm that. So certainly to the caller, we encourage them, if at all possible, to attend in person. But also, likewise, if it is possible on the technical side for us, we will be making that streaming option available. But at present, there are no plans for tomorrow's meeting to be streamed live.
Okay, I'm sure you could probably hire Radio Cayman, short notice, but I'm sure that they could get.
I'm sure they'd be happy to come out. Certainly, Radio Cayman has been absolutely wonderful to the government. Certainly, the Premier had a number of events, certainly at different meetings. I believe the most recent one was the Honourable Dwayne Seymour in Bodden Town, where he had his meeting. Radio Cayman came out and broadcast live for that. So certainly to your point, Radio Cayman is available and has proven effective to the government. And certainly if it's something that we can manage to pull off in the relatively short period of time, certainly we would be happy to provide it. But at present, those discussions have not yielded any fruit.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about these bills and the ramifications if these aren't addressed, because of course people will say, well, there are other issues that are affecting people here in the Cayman Islands, and why should this take priority? These take priority over any other issues in the Cayman Islands.
Absolutely. Again, OC, thank you very much. Commencing on Wednesday, the 24th of July, the Legislative Assembly will resume its sixth meeting of the 2018-2019 session of the Legislative Assembly, where we will be bringing some 15 bills for amendment. I think it's 13 out of those 15 bills are in response to a critical evaluation that was conducted by the CFATF, or Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, as it relates to reducing the country's risk and vulnerabilities as it relates to money laundering. This CFATF evaluation requires a number of amendments to various financial service laws. So certainly the Honourable Minister for Financial Services will get her exercise as of Wednesday in leading the charge and presenting most, if not all, of these bills. I just want to point out two things. First of all, in terms of the background behind the evaluation, which some in the media have coined a damning report. Whilst it is, I would use the words, a critical report, but certainly the Cayman Islands is not unique. Much of the shortcomings that have been involved in this process of, improving our money laundering monitoring and evaluations, but also heading towards, the global recognition of beneficial ownership, is very much a global challenge for all entities in the financial services business. And the Cayman Islands are not unique in the critical evaluation or otherwise some of the areas that we fell short. Certainly the United States is also included in that list of countries or jurisdictions that still have some work to do. The evaluation that was conducted by the CFATF took a look at compliance grading on two fronts. The technical compliance and the effectiveness of that compliance. On the technical side, Cayman has always done relatively well. We have a strong jurisdiction of some strong legislation, some clear guidelines that are at the forefront of the financial services industry globally. But it is on the effectiveness of those laws, or put simpler, the enforcement of those laws, which has proven to be a challenge not only for us in the Cayman Islands, but other wider global jurisdictions. But keeping it closer to home, I think the effectiveness of laws, whether they relate to financial services or otherwise, has always been a challenge for us. How do we enforce the laws? How do we put in place meaningful sanctions that encourage persons and entities and organizations to follow that law? So it is on the effectiveness of those laws where I think we received a bit of a critical grading from the CFATF. And these amendments that will be coming before the House will be seeking to address any gaps in that effectiveness. You asked the question, what are the implications? Why are we doing this when perhaps there might be other priorities? Whilst there are other priorities, the ability to conduct our banking, not just for the large firms, the Fortune 500s, those law firms and accounting firms and offshore business, but complying to these global standards relates as far down the totem pole as you and I being able to transact business over the counter, whether it be to send money overseas to friends or family. It is legislation and it is an action that impacts financial service in totality. If we chose to ignore these otherwise global recommendations, then we can expect to find ourselves on a blacklist. That will include countries such as Syria, North Korea, etc., all countries in which the Cayman Islands does not necessarily want to be associated with. And it would signal the demise of not only our offshore financial services business, but as I stated earlier on, the ability for the average man on the street to be able to conduct financial services in any way, small or large. So it's not an issue that we can turn a blind eye to. It is certainly not an issue that will be considered not as important as some of the other issues. I would put it up there side by side, just as important for us in order to continue to conduct business as usual, either at a personal or at a corporate level, and these are standards that we just simply cannot afford to ignore. As I stated, 15 bills, 13 of which will impact the financial services arena. With your permission, I'll just read through the list of those bills.
Sure.
Or do we have the time?
I think we have 1 minute still, Ms. Susan.
I'll have the Trade and Business Licensing Amendment Bill, the Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill, the Building Societies Amendment Bill, the Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill, the Insurance Amendment Bill, the Money Services Amendment Bill, the Mutual Funds Amendment Bill, the Trust Amendment Bill, the Auditors Oversight Amendment Bill, the Public Management and Finance Amendment Bill, the Monetary Authority Amendment Bill, the Companies Amendment Bill, and rounding off on financial services, the Limited Liability Partnerships Amendment Bill. The two other bits of amendments not related to financial services but are laws requiring improvement include the Public Service Pensions Amendment Bill and the Public Lands Amendment Bill. So 15 bills in total. They will be complemented by a further 9 business papers and reports, which are largely things like financial statements and annual reports that will be tabled in the LA, which will thereafter become a public document.
Excellent. And we will address each one of these amendments individually when we return after the 8 o'clock news. So please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And studio time by Price Right is 8 a.m.
Is Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore, making your dollar go further with huge savings and no membership fees. Get more of the things you use every day at the right price. But it's not just grocery and health and beauty. Priced Right has a full range of products from office to automotive, patio furnishings to kitchen appliances, and even electronics. And since warehouse prices mean savings for you, everything is priced right at Priced Right, Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore.
Access to information. Your community. News and information. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. A teen heads to court this morning after getting busted for allegedly stealing a phone. Royal Cayman Islands Police Service says 911 Communications Center sent officers to a report of a robbery near Margaritaville Resort on West Bay Road Saturday morning after a victim reported that his phone had been swiped. A 19-year-old was arrested and charged with robbery. Police say the phone was recovered. House Speaker the Honorable Makiva Bush addresses young participants from high schools and tertiary institutions at a road show highlighting parliamentary democracy. Radio Cayman's April Cummings has the details.
The roadshow is organized by the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. Mr. Bush was attending the CPA's 44th annual conference of the Caribbean, Americas, and Atlantic region this week in Port of Spain, Trinidad, and Tobago, and was a guest speaker at the roadshow. Begun by CPA Secretary General Mr. Akbar Khan in 2016, with the first one held here in Grand Cayman, the roadshow is now a part of the CPA Regional Conference. Mr. Bush highlighted the rules of Parliament, the code of conduct that members must abide by, as well as the rules which govern the business of the House. He said one rule decrees that the Speaker can't join in debate in the House, but says there is no rule which forbids the Speaker as an elected member to voice the feelings of his constituents or speak for them outside the House within the Cayman Islands or outside the nation. He said those who oppose the Speaker because he voices his opinion on matters of development or any other important issue are, quote, not in touch with the reality that confronts constituents. The Speaker encouraged young people to get involved in their communities and to put forth their ideas for the welfare and harmony of all community members. He said if they have ideas about becoming members of Parliament, most of all, they must be willing to serve and appreciate and genuinely care for people. April Cummings, Radio Cayman News.
In regional news, a gay man who has chosen to remain anonymous for his, quote, own protection has filed a landmark claim challenging Dominica's laws that criminalize buggery and gross indecency. A statement from the Canadian HIV/AIDS Legal Network, which is providing legal support along with the University of Toronto's International Human Rights Program, said this case, quote, will demonstrate that these horrific and outdated laws violate human rights guaranteed in the Constitution of Dominica. This weekend's official filing was announced by Daryl Phillips, founder and head of Minority Rights Dominica, and Maurice Tomlinson, senior policy analyst with the HIV Legal Network and a dual citizen of Jamaica and Canada. The case builds on the global movement for decriminalizing LGBT sex, as seen recently in Botswana and India. It also builds on precedents from sister Caribbean countries, Belize and Trinidad and Tobago, and will assist similar cases underway in Barbados and Jamaica, both also supported by the HIV Legal Network. Now with the check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Karsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with Eileen McHugh. South Africa's highest court has ruled that the public protector, the state official in charge of investigating corruption, lied under oath. The Constitutional Court has ordered Busisiwe Mkhwebane to pay legal fees of $65,000 for acting dishonestly in a case involving South Africa's Reserve Bank. Kenya's Finance Minister Henry Rotich has been arrested after the Director of Public Prosecution accused him and several other government officials of corruption. He's due to face charges relating to a project to build dams. Mr. Rotich has previously denied any wrongdoing. The leader of Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, has said an attack on China's liaison office in the territory on Sunday challenged the nation's sovereignty. Protesters threw black paint on the Chinese national emblem above the office's main door. China has called it an attack on Beijing's authority. Iran says it has arrested 17 spies who were working for the CIA and sentenced some of them to death. The U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, has dismissed the claims, saying Tehran had a long history of lying. An airstrike on a market in rebel-held northwestern Syria is reported to have killed 23 people. The British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said at least 19 of the dead were civilians. Russia has denied that its warplanes carried out the bombing. The Swedish car manufacturer Volvo is recalling more than 500,000 cars worldwide over concerns about possible engine fires. A company investigation has found that in rare cases, plastic fitted as part of some diesel engines can melt, causing a risk of fire. BBC News.
Access information. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Summer
means sunscreen. A lot of it. But this year, you can make the reef-friendly choice in sunscreen. At Healthcare Pharmacy in Governors Square and Grand Harbor, you can find Ocean Potion and Australian Gold Botanical Sunscreen. Ocean Potion is reef-friendly, oxybenzone-free, antioxidant-enriched, and contains no added parabens. Australian Gold is also phthalate-free, hypoallergenic, and was not tested on animals. So make the right choice in sunscreen this summer with Healthcare Pharmacy, Governors Square, and Grand Harbor.
Hey, are those new glasses on Will?
Yeah, we went to Optical Outlook. Wham, bam, easy exam. Finally, an exam he could pass. And we had the glasses the next day. Easiest part of our back-to-school shopping for sure.
Book your child's eye exam today at Optical Outlook. Call 746-2020. Get half off a complete pair of glasses with any student's eye exam now until August 31st. Come see the difference with Optical Outlook, located in Caymanian Village.
Stay up to date with the latest in healthy living and fitness trends every Saturday morning at 9:30 and Wednesday at 7 p.m. For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Most clinics in the United States, they kind of like one surgery fits all. You're saying, that's not necessary. That's not going to be the case with me. And that's good to hear.
For the Health of It is proudly brought to you by GNC. Join the GNC community and take advantage of their discount days. The first 7 business days of every month and every Wednesday. GNC. Believe in the power of nutrition.
The Weather Report is proudly sponsored by Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
New stock has just arrived at Super Stitch. Now don't take my word for it. Drop by and see for yourself. Fresh off the boat, we have loads of fabric, vinyl upholstery fabric, fabric for cushions, outdoor fabrics, and dress fabric. That's not all. Super Stitch has sewing accessories and craft items. Included in the new shipment, you will find sheets, comforters, throw pillows, bath mats, rugs, and curtains for every room in your home. Super Stitch, 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best price in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Pleasant good morning. Time now for the latest weather report. Current temperature is 84 degrees. Relative humidity is 85%. Barometric pressure is 29.95 inches and rising. The wind is east at 3 knots. Overnight low temperature was 79 degrees. Synopsis indicate light winds and slight seas expected for the next 24 hours due to a slack pressure gradient over the northwest Caribbean. Radar images show isolated showers in and around the Cayman area moving westward. Now the forecast for today calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of afternoon showers and possible thunder, and temperatures will rise to the low 90s today. Your winds will be east to northeast at 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Forecast for tonight, partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of late night showers and temperatures falling to the upper 70s tonight. Your winds will be east to northeast at 5 knots or less, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. We're presently at a low tide, and the next high tide will be this afternoon at 1:29, and a low tide again tonight at 7:22. Sunset 7:04, sunrise 5:59. And the outlook through Wednesday morning is calling for similar weather conditions.
Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center was a proud sponsor of the Weather Report, your one-stop shop for all of your household items, craft items, jewelry, beads, and decorations, and much more. Call Super Stitch at 949-2833 or email customer care at superstitch.com.ky.
New stock has just arrived at Super Stitch. Now don't take my word for it. Drop by and see for yourself. Fresh off the boat, we have loads of fabric, vinyl upholstery fabric, fabric for cushions, outdoor fabrics, and dress fabric. That's not all. Super Stitch has sewing accessories and craft items. Included in the new shipment, you will find sheets, comforters, throw pillows, bath mats, rugs, and curtains for every room in your home. Super Stitch, 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best price in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Top of the morning to you. Let's take a look at how traffic is shaping up. Coming from the east on Shamrock Road, steady but flowing traffic at the moment on Linford Pearson Highway. Coming off of Bobby Thompson Way, traffic is moderate. Little steady traffic on Huldah Avenue, but nothing to worry about too much. Coming from the West Bay four-way stop, traffic is light to moderate. Light traffic on Owen Roberts Drive. Looking at what's happening on Godfrey Nixon Way and Eastern Avenue, traffic flowing moderately as well as North Sound Road. And some cruise ships in port today, so be sure to look out for pedestrians as they make their way across downtown Georgetown. And that's the very latest on your traffic. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12. We'll update you traffic-wise. And remember, 10-2 on the steering wheel. Have a good morning.
When a storm is approaching, be sure to not only stock up on drinking water, but also non-drinking water. This is water that can be used for cleaning and washing. You can store non-drinking water in clean bathtubs or other large sterile containers. Visit the Water Authority's website, www.waterauthority.ky, or follow us on social media for more hurricane preparedness tips.
Radio Cayman's premier health show,
For the Health of It, with Tara Bush,
is brought to you on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on 89.9 and 93.9 FM. Proudly brought to you by the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association. For more information on how you can become a member or the benefits of the CICSA, please visit www.cicsa.ky. For your convenience, the CICSA offices are open on Mondays from 9 to 12 p.m. and Thursdays from 1 to 4 p.m.
For the Health of It, with Tara Bush.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Talk Today, the most listened to call-in program in Cayman, airs Monday through Friday, 12:15 till 2:30 p.m. Listeners are encouraged to call in and share their constructive thoughts and ideas on current issues concerning the Cayman Islands and beyond.
Talk Today is proudly brought to you by Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy located in Countryside Shopping Village. Savannah Pharmacy, just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the Record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. We're discussing the bills that will be presented to our Legislative Assembly on Wednesday, the 24th day of July, this coming Wednesday. And before we went to the break, Mr. Austin Harris explained to our audience the ramifications if these bills are not, if these issues are not attended to, because the AML and the CTF authorities, they have reviewed our situation. They have looked at where our shortcomings are. Yep. They have made recommendations. We, in turn, now, our obligation is to act upon those recommendations if we are to remain off a gray list, a black list, whatever.
Yes, indeed. And, you know, it's like this discussion has always gone, when we look at the background, the history, you know, the Cayman Islands were never going to be the first jurisdiction to embrace these changes. We've always maintained that once the requirements on anti-money laundering, on beneficial ownership and otherwise became a global standard, where then everyone who are in or find themselves in the financial services business are held to account by the same level, then, of course, the Cayman Islands would continue to make its compliance as a responsible jurisdiction. And certainly these standards are now very much a global standard. And as I mentioned, the implications of ignoring them would include blacklisting, would mean the demise of our financial services industry, which, of course, is a significant revenue earner for the Cayman Islands. But how it would impact the average man on the street would be the inability to transact your own individual banking business, whether it be locally or sending money overseas to friends or family. It's just really not a subject that can be ignored. Again, the Cayman Islands has always maintained a strong technical compliance as it relates to money laundering and KYC, Know Your Client. But it's fallen short, as has other jurisdictions, on its effectiveness, its ability to enforce these laws, its ability to put in place realistic sanctions. So you don't follow the law, what happens next? And I think you'll find when we begin the discussion on some of the moving parts of these amendments, we've done just that, and we will be seeking to do just that come Wednesday, the 24th of July. But overall, these changes will reduce our country's risk and vulnerabilities as it relates to money laundering, but also recognizing, I think, as the Minister for Financial Services, the Honourable Tara Rivers, stated, I think recently in the media, recognizing that Cayman's financial services industry plays a significant and effective role in the fight against global money laundering and other financial crimes, and certainly we have a responsibility to continue along that trek. If we take a look at some of the bills, in particular the Trade and Business Licensing Bill, it provides for a new requirement in respect of an applicant or companies listed as, the acronym is DNFBP, and that stands for Designated Non-Financial Businesses and Professions, and for those carrying out that business. It also seeks to allow the Trade and Business Licensing Board to revoke or suspend a license where it receives notice from a supervisory authority. A supervisory authority would be, with respect to anti-money laundering, would be the Anti-Corruption Commission, for example, the Financial Reporting Unit of the RCIPS, the Financial Crimes Unit, and as well as the Monetary Authority. Certainly, based on a notice from any of these authorities on a company, the amendments to the Trade and Business Licensing Bill, or now will be law, will be to allow the board to suspend or revoke a trade and business license if done so in writing. The bill will also create a new category of licenses for property investors and dealers in precious metals and stones, which of course carries with it a financial services implication as well, and the need to maintain compliance. So that's the Trade and Business Licensing Amendment Bill. The Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill seeks to empower the Monetary Authority to require licensees providing company management to comply with another law, the Limited Liability Partnership Law, which is also going to undergo some amendments. And since I guess we're referring to it, I might as well talk about those amendments now.
Sure.
The Limited Liability Partnership Amendment Bill will make certain information related to limited liability partnerships accessible, to require partnerships to keep information up to date, and to increase penalties for failure to comply with beneficial ownership requirements. It requires partnerships to include information on the nature of the partnership interest of each partner, as well as to make it an offense to refuse to allow a person to inspect or make a copy of the registrar of companies. That bit I want to stick a pin, because the accessibility of certain basic information the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force have defined basic information to be made available to the general public, to include list of directors and the public. And this is something that, again, the global standard lists directors and beneficial owners and partners as basic information that should be held in a public registry. Certainly, the various amendments seek to provide the gateway in order to facilitate that access to take place. Also, in terms of enforcement, it will allow for a fine of $25,000 for a first offense, or a fine of $50,000 for a second offense for failing to comply with any aspect of the limited liability partnership law or any of the relevant authorities guided to operate therein. So that's the limited liability.
If we can go back to the banks and trusts
yes.
companies amendment bill, I note here that it also says that the bill also would empower Cayman Islands Monetary Authority to require a licensee holding a license in order to establish a banking business in the Cayman Islands banking group, that they must make public disclosures as well. So that's extremely important, I think, also.
Yes.
The fact that those disclosures have to be made public.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to be able to draw the line between what the CFATF define as basic information, that is to include the list of directors, but beneficial and draw the separation from beneficial ownership. The beneficial ownership of companies will not be made available publicly. That is a separate matter
issue.
altogether. Whilst beneficial information will be maintained and required to be maintained by companies, they must do so in writing and keep accurate records. But that information will only be made available to relevant authorities following a written request by a recognized body that falls under, again, what is listed as, I think the term is supervisory authority. That information will not be held in the public domain. So this is something that we can reassure companies, in particular company managers and the like, but certainly what the Financial Action Task Force defines as basic information, the name of directors, the name of your partners, yes. That information would be what would be made available in public form.
Excellent.
Staying with the Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill, it will, as you say, introduce a new section that will require banks to make public disclosures as specified by the Monetary Authority. It will also seeks to empower the Monetary Authority to require licensees providing company management to comply with the Limited Liability Partnership Law, and seeks to empower a Justice of the Peace to issue a search warrant to the authority in relation to breaches in the Limited Liability Partnerships Law itself. So again, addressing the effectiveness of our compliance regime, implementing standards and sanctions for those that choose not to follow the law as it is written. The Building Societies Amendment Bill 2019 will require directors and senior officers of building societies to be fit and proper persons, and also requires the approval of the Monetary Authority in relation to any changes to the directors or senior officers or for incidental or connected purposes. I forgot to mention that, but certainly all of these bills will also include for incidental and connected purposes. So these are areas that may not be already defined now, but as we will discover, as we just found, the Banks and Trust Companies law has an impact on the Limited Liability Partnerships law as it does to the companies law. So there are correlations, if you will, between one law and other laws, and companies have to follow all of them. The Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill 2019, again similar to the Building Societies Amendment Bill, will require directors and senior officers of a credit union to be fit and proper persons. as well as to require the approval of the Monetary Authority in relation to any changes of those directors or senior officers. Our company wants to, change a director. They have to notify the Monetary Authority. The Monetary Authority has to thereby approve those changes before it can become effective, as well as for connected and incidental purposes.
Now, I also, you mentioned fit and proper person.
Mm-hmm.
Is there? Would you have the definition? Because I see in a summary here it talks about the fact that if a person is suspected of criminal activity, then they probably would not be able to function as a director in those institutions, within those institutions.
I have a copy of the...
we can find that during the break, and we can come back to that.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at it and see. I'm sure the definitions include it. This is not, I'll admit, my area of expertise, and certainly I think the person who would have this information readily available at the top of her head would be the minister.
Yep.
But
we can come back. We can come back to that.
Thank you for that. We'll definitely take a look and see if we can answer those questions for you. But I do thank you for raising it. I think also, if it's not in the Green Bills itself, the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority also has the guidance on what is defined as fit and proper persons. But we will certainly seek to answer that question, which I think is an excellent one. The Insurance Amendment Bill 2019 seeks to require licensees providing company management services to comply again with the Limited Liability Partnerships Law and for connected and incidental purposes. The Money Services Amendment Bill seeks to strengthen the regulation and supervision of the Monetary Authority in relation to money services, and also seeks to require a licensee to maintain an account in support of transactions carried out by the licensee. So again, more documentation and also strengthening of regulations for the money services sector. The Mutual Funds Amendment Bill 2019 will require the licensee providing company management services to comply with the Parts 8 and 12 of the Companies Law, as well as the Limited Liability Partnership Law. The Trust Amendment Bill 2019 will enable competent authorities, as defined by the Proceeds of Crime Law, to require certain information from trustees and the Register of Trusts, and in some cases to have this information provided within 48 hours for monitoring and compliance purposes. So again, we're requiring trust companies, those in financial services, to maintain adequate records and information, but also to provide that information on demand following a written demand for this information. And sometimes some of that information can be required to be submitted as quickly as, within 2 days.
Okay.
But in other cases, longer periods depending on the type of information. The effectiveness aspect of our compliance has been where these gaps have been in our laws. How does a company comply with the regulation? What are the requirements? What are the timelines for those requirements? What are the sanctions if they don't follow those requirements? Needed to be spelled out more clearly, and that is what this effort is seeking to address. Where are we at? The Auditor's Oversight Amendment Bill number 9 seeks to make the financial year for the authority consistent with the financial year set out in the Public Management and Finance Law. I want to say it's the 31st of March, but I don't have that information readily at hand, so I will certainly have to come back to that as to what the financial year is defined as in the Public Management and Finance Law.
Okay, this will be a good point for us to take a commercial break, and when we return, we will have more information on the bills going to the Legislative Assembly on Wednesday. This information coming from MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. Please stay tuned.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, seaboard.
Did you know the third most important factor for customer retention is cleanliness? With 95% of shoppers saying exterior appearance influences where they decide to shop. Keep your business clean with Roper's Janitorial. From offices to restaurants, interior and exterior, walls to rugs and flooring, Roper's cleans it all, including 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Dress your business for success with Roper's Janitorial. We make your business shine. 949-2511.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Radio Cayman 3 to 6 mix on the weekdays. Brought to you by
Cayman Insurance Center, serving the community for 45 years. Don't take chances with your family's future. Call Denise Brown at 814-7229 or Michael Webster at 925-5433. Fitness Plus and Train with Dre. Getting in shape has never been easier with the mobile fitness app by Train with Dre and the new Eco Power Sport Art Equipment.
Every day.
All the time.
Visit fitnessplus.com for more information. And City Walk, serving Chinese, Japanese, and Filipino dishes until 11 p.m. each night. East meets West at City Walk. Dine in, take out, or order online. See their full menu at citywalk.ky. Call 947-9965.
Ultimate Party Show in the afternoon. Radio Cayman Super Jam.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. We're discussing the raft of bills that will be going to the Legislative Assembly on Wednesday, the 24th of July, this coming Wednesday. Mr. Harris.
Indeed. Thank you, OC, again. Just answering your question as to how does the law define what a person as being fit and proper person. These are sort of standard requirements that are the same across the spectrum, whether it be the Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill, whether it be the Insurance Amendment Bill, or the Building Societies Amendment Bill. But taking a look at the definition as outlined in the Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill 2019, It says, in determining for the purpose of this law whether a person is a fit and proper person, regard shall be had to all circumstances, including that person's honesty, integrity, and reputation, B, competence and capability, and C, financial soundness. So these are the general criteria that would otherwise seek to define a fit and proper person. So hopefully we've been able to answer that one question. Again, we've gone through 9 of the amendments, 9 of 15. The 10th Amendment, 10th Bill, the Public Management and Finance Amendment Bill 2019. The bill seeks to address certain constraints being experienced in the delivery of output since the change to the multi-budget year cycle. As you know, we recently, I think under the previous administration, changed to a 2-year budget reporting cycle as opposed to an annual 12-month. And some, again, whenever you make any kinds of changes, you discover some problems along the way that you don't foresee. Yep. The law of unintended consequences. Yes. So we're seeking to address some of those unintended consequences in this amendment. It'll also seek to provide that the appropriations lapse at the end of each budget period instead of the end of the financial year. So we're looking at it in 2-year blocks as opposed to the traditional expiration on each individual financial year. It also seeks to adjust the date for the presentation of the supplementary appropriations bill for approvals on the 31st of March. Again, every year the Legislative Assembly has to be convened in order to hear the supplementary appropriation bill, which in English means any budgetary allotment not already defined in the full budget, in the primary budget, but is deemed to be supplementary. Say, for example, let's look at one of my ministries, Ministry of Community Affairs, the NAU rental assistance budget, which regularly, goes above budget, and we have to go back to the House for supplementary. Otherwise, people will be out in the cold. Since we will not put people out in the cold, we have to go back to the Legislative Assembly and get approval for additional funding in order to fund the operations of that ministry.
And you can't spend it before you have it.
You cannot. Exactly. You cannot spend it before you have it. And again, whilst there are some opportunities, I think Section 11.5 and Section 12. Section 12 allows the cabinet to make these supplementary themselves in cabinet. Section 11.5 appropriations require that these appropriations go before the entire Legislative Assembly and be voted on by all members before they can be spent. So I thank you for pointing that out. And the final amendment on the PMFL is to extend the time for submission of an annual report to the Auditor General by just 1 month. So that we can, again, meet the timelines required under the Public Management and Finance Law. The Monetary Authority Amendment Bill 2019, and I think this is one of the areas that we were speaking of during the break. The amendment seeks to amend the Monetary Authority to adjust the financial year of the authority and to facilitate the carry-on of business by entities that are registered in other jurisdictions in the event of a natural or man-made disaster. This is enabling the Cabinet to make regulations that authorize the authority to exempt any person or class of persons that may be affected by a disaster for a period of time, which enables that company to maintain continuity of business. So what does that mean? Whether it be a record of transactions, for example. If you're a bank or an insurance company, you're on the first floor of a building that suffers catastrophic flooding damage, and now these records are completely lost. But you still need to continue your business because you have clients that are impacted by it. So now this amendment will enable the Cabinet at its discretion to make certain exemptions on certain persons for a specified period of time. These aren't a blanket exemption. The persons can now, avoid the requirements under the law of anti-money laundering or otherwise. But it says that you can exempt a person or entity for a specific period of time just or insofar as it allows that business to continue its operations in the event of a natural disaster. or whether it be a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. So that, again, ensures businesses have the opportunity to continue as usual, but giving Cabinet some flexibility as to how the rules operate surrounding those businesses. The company's Amendment Bill 2019, which, as stated in the previous 11 amendments, are correlated, as they say, for incidental or connected purposes. Under the company's Amendment Bill 2019, it seeks to insert a new section which would require the Registrar of Companies, upon receipt of a request in writing, to provide certain information to the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Monetary Authority, the Financial Crimes Unit of the RCIPS, the Financial Reporting Authority, and the Tax Information Authority, all of which are assigned with the responsibility for monitoring compliance with money laundering regulations. So again, any of these supervisory authorities, as we spoke about earlier in the Trade and Business Licensing Bill, may make a request of the Registrar of Companies of an individual company, in which they would do so in writing. But once they have provided that request in writing, then the information that they're seeking can be shared with the relevant authorities as part of our anti-money laundering standards. The company amendment bill also seeks to repeal Section 40 of the Principal Law and substitute a new section which would require a company to record in its register of members the names and addresses of the members of a company and the statement of shares held by each member, which again is what the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force defines as basic information that needs to be maintained by all companies. The Third Amendment seeks to reduce the time period with which a company is required to notify the registrar of any change of directors or officers. Previously, under the Principal Law, the timeline of that notice period was 60 days. It has now been reduced to 30 days. It also seeks to introduce a new section which would require the registrar to make a list of the names of the directors and alternate directors of a company available for inspection by any person. Again, this is that basic information of the directors and alternate directors, which would be made available to the public at any time for inspection, to have a copy of it, but it is separate from beneficial ownership, which is not made public. And I want to make that point abundantly clear so as to not have the two confused. In terms of sanctions, I think this is one of the key areas, and because the company's law is interrelated to a number of other pieces of legislation that we spoke of, this is where the sanctions, I think, takes on some teeth. The amendment seeks to provide for a fine of up to $25,000 for the first offense, and that is failing to issue a notice under the Principal Law, a fine of $100,000 for a second offense, and a third offense seeks to empower the courts to strike off this company from the register in the event of a third offense. So again, whilst we hope we can avoid these sanctions, we certainly will hit companies where it matters in their pocketbook. $25,000 for a first offense, $100,000 for a second offense, and if there is a third offense, then the courts will then be empowered, if this amendment passes, to strike that company from the official registrar.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, the conversation with MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris will continue, so please stay tuned.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore.
I just love the warm ocean air.
Yeah? Your car doesn't.
What you mean?
Looks like salt air is eating your bump alive.
Stop rust before it starts with Z-Bot Rust Protection from Vant Motors. The extreme heat, salt spray, and wet tropical weather can damage your vehicle and greatly decrease its value. But Z-Bot's patented formula protects your car's metal seams, joints, and other hidden areas. There's no better rust protection out there than Z-Bot. So book today and keep the rust away. Call or visit Vant Motors Body Shop on Walker's Road. Your only authorized Z-Bot service in Cayman is now available at Vant Motors.
Remember to discard all fresh fruits and vegetables, meats, all foods in canisters, dented, leaking, or rusting cans after they have come in contact with floodwater. Also, discard foods that are stored in cardboard boxes, paper foil, cellophane, and cloth, as well as those in open containers and packages. For more post-hurricane food safety tips, visit DEH website at deh.gov.ky.
Hey, are those new glasses on Will?
Yeah, we went to Optical Outlook. Wham, bam, easy exam. Finally, an exam he could pass. And we had the glasses the next day. Easiest part of our back-to-school shopping for sure.
Book your child's eye exam today at Optical Outlook. Call 746-2020. Get half off a complete pair of glasses with any student's eye exam now until August 31st. Come see the difference with Optical Outlook, located in Caymanian Village.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. Mr. Harris is scheduled to be here until 9 o'clock, but if he needs to be here any longer than that, and if he can, we certainly are prepared to accommodate him. After that period, we will, of course, the phone lines are open now as well if you have any questions of Mr. Harris in this regard. But after Mr. Harris's departure, we will have our open line, and you will have an opportunity then to discuss some of the things that you want to discuss as well. One of the questions that one of our listeners posed to me several weeks ago when we were discussing the constitutional changes in the Cayman Islands was the whole question of the definition of Caymanian, and why didn't we define Caymanian in our constitution, and rather than just simply saying that Caymanian has the same meaning as described in the immigration law, or as appears in the immigration law. So I have gone back. I've gotten excerpts from the constitutional discussions, and I will share that with our audience at some point in time this morning as well. In particular, I hope that person who posed the question will be listening as well. But that will come later on. So I'm going to go back to Mr. Harris. I want to read on this release by the Financial Services Department. And one paragraph here, I think this is instructive, and again, you highlighted the importance of having these amendments done in order to continue to be in compliance. And it says that if the degree and the quality of progress made by the Cayman Islands do not satisfy the recommended actions, the ATF will issue a public statement regarding the jurisdiction's anti-money laundering CFT deficiencies, develop an action plan, and monitor progress against the action plan. And it goes on to say that in June, Cayman's AML CFT regime was strengthened by the passage of the Proceeds of Crime Amendment Law 2019, Securities Investment Business Amendment Law, and the Directors Registration and Licensing Amendment Law 2019. Now, this public statement that is made by the FATF has an impact. Sure, it's not something that you can take and put in file 13, or you can take it and sweep it under the rug. It is made public so that all and sundry can see it, including investors,
Absolutely.
including other international institutions as well. But I'll leave it for you to explain.
No, absolutely. I think you've done a fine job. Certainly, as the press release has stated very clearly, should we fall short in any of these areas, which, again, we've read about the CFATF evaluation that was critical. More so critical not on a technical compliance standpoint, but an effectiveness of those technical compliance standards. How do you enforce the law? What sanctions do you put in place for the law? What sort of teeth do you provide your financial reporting authority and your various supervisory authorities in order to protect the country from any vulnerabilities that are attached to money laundering or their practices? And again, which is why this exercise is so important of going to the Legislative Assembly on Wednesday to further seek to enhance our local legislation to amend, again, 13 different pieces of legislation that all impact this, the effectiveness of our compliance. So what we're hoping for is that, these amendments have taken shape based on this evaluation in partnership with the authorities. I think we saw the minister very recently traveling to Washington, in which to engage in person-to-person conversations as to what this criteria should look like, just how far the Cayman Islands should otherwise be seeking to go in its legislation. So what we're hoping for is that by making the positive efforts that we're doing now and will do on Wednesday to fill these gaps, we will then negate the need for the FATF to issue any sort of public statement, which frankly is just as bad as a blacklist. It's saying, listen, you've failed to meet a certain criteria now so much that it has forced us to write publicly. And when they say write publicly, it will be published through their network, published in the local media. But it's not just interest in the Cayman Islands that will see that publication, but it will be a global publication that every jurisdiction will be able to see. And that includes clients, both existing as well as future clients, and can be seen as harmful to the business of financial services here in the Cayman Islands and abroad. So these exercises that we find ourselves engaged in, and whilst the average person on the street may view these 13 amendments in financial services to be relatively dry and boring and maybe not as a priority, but in terms of how the Cayman Islands conducts business, we've known since primary school we've got two primary industries, tourism and financial services, and we have to protect both because the revenue derived from those key industries is what provides for new roads, for better schools, for better hospitals, for overall better infrastructure. So we have to protect those industries with some tidying up of the legislation as time from time to time, and that's exactly what we're doing here in this process.
And I think it's also instructive to note that it isn't only, this is not limited to the Cayman Islands.
Absolutely
there are other
not.
jurisdictions that find themselves in situations as well. I think we have a caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Morning for Mr. For the Record.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, and good morning to Mr. Harris.
Good morning to you, sir, Dr. McField.
Yes, good morning to you, sir. Mr. Harris, this is for you.
Yes, sir.
Several weeks ago, I think it was, I spoke to His Excellency the Governor concerning implementation of Section 117 of the Constitution and Section 119.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that he was looking at getting Section 117 implemented, but he was not going to do anything about Section 119 because that was for the politicians to do. That is the district councils.
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Harris, since you are part of the administration now,
mm-hmm.
What are the ramifications? There are ramifications for not putting in all of these laws in for the international community. What are the ramifications for not having these two sections of the Constitution implemented for the local community? What are the ramifications of it? And are there any sanctions?
Honestly, Dr. McField, I feel somewhat at a bit of a loss. I'm certainly not the constitutional expert that perhaps I should be. I know the crafters of the Constitution, which includes the government as well as members of the opposition, have gotten together and agreed on what are some of the minor changes that they've defined should take place as part of the constitutional talks and negotiations. I think that question would probably best be reserved for persons such as the Premier and others who have been directly involved in these constitutional modernization conversations. But I just want to stipulate that it's not just the government that have sat back and embraced what we believe to be some of the minor changes that would otherwise strengthen our current constitutional provisions. But these decisions were taken in agreement and in full collaboration with the opposition at the table themselves. In terms of the advisory district councils, all I can say is what my initial understanding is of the circumstance was that when the Constitution was written, we had 7 districts. We had not yet moved towards single-member constituencies, which now see us with 19 constituencies. And the law itself, or the Constitution itself, was written against the backdrop of 7 districts and not 19 constituencies. And there are some minor nuances that come with the introduction of a single-member constituencies, one man, one vote, that impact the establishment of those district councils. What those specific nuances are, again, I regret, I am not familiar with, and I can do one of two things. I can either commit myself to finding the answer to your question and returning either directly in person or writing to Mr. O.C., or otherwise encouraging members of my government, in particular the Premier and those involved in the constitutional modernization talks, to address that perhaps more intelligently.
Yes. What I would like you to do, and when you're seeking that kind of information, is to have a look at the district council law itself, and you will see that they provided for multiple electoral districts, not just 5 districts. Mm-hmm. And all it needs, it will only take 1 day or 2 days to make the amendments that would be necessary. The amendments that some people, the provisions that some people disagree with, it would only take a day or two to amend it and to put it back before the legislature and to have it passed. Absolutely. And so we in the public do not understand some 10 years now after the law has come into effect that we don't have district councils, which is one of the things that the framers of the Constitution say was one of the hallmarks to promote democracy and to sustain democracy in the country.
Indeed, sir. And if I can just seek clarification, as I didn't bring my Constitution with me today, that's Section 117 and 119, is that correct?
That's right.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. McField, for the question. And certainly I will seek to solicit a response to your question, which, again, as I stated, I will either deliver in person or I will do so electronically to Mr. O.C., and he can thereby share it with yourself and the rest of the audiences.
Thank you, Councillor.
My pleasure, Dr. McField. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you. We're going to take a commercial break again. Headline News, 9 o'clock. This is the time that Mr. Harris, was scheduled to depart.
I'm all yours, O.C.
But he's going to stay here a bit longer as well. So please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Headline. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
A 19-year-old is in court today after police arrest and charge him on suspicion of robbery. Early Saturday morning, 911 sent officers to a report of a robbery near Margaritaville Resort where a man had been robbed of his cell phone. Officers arrested the teen and recovered the alleged stolen cell phone. Hong Kong has been left in shock after a night of violence on Sunday, which saw dozens of masked men storm a train station. The men, dressed in white shirts and suspected to be triad gangsters, assaulted pro-democracy protesters and passers-by. This is the first time this kind of violence has been seen in the ongoing anti-extradition demonstrations. Several lawmakers questioned why police were slow to arrive at the scene. And Israel's begun demolishing a cluster of Palestinian homes it said were built illegally too close to the separation barrier in the occupied West Bank. Security forces moved in Sir Bahir on the edge of East Jerusalem to tear down buildings said to house 17 people. Residents say they had been given permits to build by the Palestinian Authority and accused Israel of attempting to grab West Bank land. But Israel's Supreme Court ruled that they had violated a constitutional ban. Those are your headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. We're going to continue to discuss the bills coming before the Legislative Assembly. But and we do know that Mr. Harris will be having a meeting tomorrow night as well. Yes, but he has never really had an opportunity to come on the show to talk about his constituency and to even feel questions from them, because whenever he is on here, he's on here in his capacity as a councillor, more so than as a member of the Legislative Assembly. So we want to extend the opportunity for Mr. Harris to talk to and about his constituency as well. Meanwhile, we have one caller, so let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning to your panel and your guest, or your guest, because there's no panel. My colleague and friend, Mr. Austin Harris.
Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
And good morning, Mr. Moderator. I was listening keenly to the discussions by the member in respect to the bills that are coming. But I had to call in just now because of the last comment before the break in respect to the opposition being fully aware of all the suggested constitutional changes that were discussed in the UK. Now, though I can't give the details around that because some of it is still privy at this point to confidentiality until the governor and the government announces it. But I want to make sure that the member remembers what the parameters of the suggested changes were, which was announced by the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition of the time, Mr. Edward Miller, which was at the press conference at the GIS building on May the 23rd of 2018. And the parameters of the discussions of any constitutional changes were surrounded to public register and beneficial ownership, not to anything else. And that was the arrangement that most of the public was aware of, as well as I was aware of as an independent member. And I gave my commitment to the Premier at the time to say those parameters of discussion was what I gave him support on. Now, we are hearing whispers that they've went way out of those parameters because at this particular point, some of the suggested changes, and we can't confirm them at this particular point because we can't hear what they are way outside of those parameters. So I think it's fair that we highlight the fact that what the parameters were, and if any other suggested changes came, it didn't come by way of discussions with the people, which is what is expected by all members, to go out in the community and say, listen, these are some of the things that we think should be changed, and we're going to go ahead and negotiate on your behalf, as opposed to just going off and negotiating and come back and telling you, say, this is what I think is best for you. So I want to make sure it's clear that the parameters of any constitutional discussions at that particular point were surrounded the importance of the change to make sure that the UK could not have that overreach anymore, particularly to the topic of public registers and any other overreaches, not to any other type of changes which we're hearing of. So just want to clarify that, and I will continue to listen to the rest of the show. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank the member from Georgetown Central for his comment, and certainly by his own description, the discussion surrounding any minor constitutional modernization has largely been maintained in private for obvious reasons until His Excellency and others give their assent. I would like to point out, as the member stated, that when we state that the opposition were included in those discussions, it did include the former leader of the opposition, the former Honourable Ezra Miller, who is no longer the leader of the opposition, but it also included the deputy leader of the opposition, the Honourable Alva Suku, who is still the deputy leader of the opposition. So whilst the opposition has experienced at least one change in its leadership that was not present and involved in those constitutional conversations that took place and are still ongoing, the opposition still maintains at least one member who has been a party to those discussions, and certainly he could answer the comment that the member from Georgetown Central made, the allegation that suggested that those discussions extended far beyond the remit as was previously agreed.
So he's not sworn to any secrecy that he can't divulge anything that was discussed? Are you aware?
I take confidentiality to mean just that. Okay. It is confidential. Okay. Whether or not he chooses to share that information with members of the opposition benches is a matter of discretion, I think. Certainly I believe that as exists in the government itself, we discuss things in caucus which are not for public consumption, but it is intended to bring the government members who are not part of those private meetings up to speed so that they know what they're supporting and whether they have any comments to offer or otherwise. Could I be in a position today to sit here and outline what those confidential talks are? No, I couldn't. But am I aware of it? Yes, I am. So I think the same would be true for the member from Georgetown Central vis-a-vis his deputy leader of the opposition to be able to answer his own question that have those talks gone outside the remit or not? Certainly this is perhaps time for a private conversation with his deputy leader of the opposition, who again, I stipulate, was a member of those talks and seemingly in agreement with the overall initiative to seek these enhancements.
And chances are, if there are continued talks, he's likely to be a member again.
Yes.
If the current leader of the opposition follows what the previous leader of the opposition did in terms of including the deputy leader in those talks.
That is correct. And of course, barring any other monumental changes within the opposition, you're absolutely correct. Certainly those members should remain the same. I have no doubt whatsoever that the Honourable Arden McLean will conduct himself above board in all of these matters. But in terms of what can and can't be stated in the public domain, obviously there are rules. But I also want to stipulate that I'm not a member of that committee, so I cannot speak to any degree of certainty on any of the various moving parts. But even if I could, I would be restricted from doing so at this time. But it's not. I think as a Premier has stated on multiple occasions within the Legislative Assembly and otherwise, it's not state secrets here. We're not seeking to make massive changes that would otherwise receive, I think, rejection from the overall populace. But to the contrary, as the member from Georgetown Central pointed out, specifically to restrict things like the United Kingdom legislating on our behalf from 4,000 miles away. This constitutional overreach as it relates to things such as AML, anti-money laundering, beneficial ownership, or otherwise. We have a relationship with the United Kingdom, but we do govern ourselves. So I hope I've answered the member's question as best as I could.
Sure. And if I can just stay on this topic for a little bit longer, just to say that one of the topics that keeps popping up in the discussions only recently, last week on this talk show as well, was the extension of the term of the Premier, removing that restriction of 2 consecutive terms. And, of course, people have had to try to dispel that rumor by saying that wasn't part of it. So
it was not.
The risk that is being run by not divulging to the public what was actually discussed beyond the UK's overreach is that then you turn around and you have to defend or you have to deny what wasn't discussed.
Agreed. And I think this is where the personal responsibility of particularly the elected members of the Legislative Assembly, not just the government, but all 19 members. As I stated earlier on, the member from Georgetown Central, whether on purpose or accidentally, seemed to be supporting the views and allegations in the public domain that the constitutional talks over or extended its own parameters. He could clarify this, as a matter of fact, by speaking with his deputy leader of the opposition. He does not need to perpetuate the otherwise beliefs, real or imagined, as a member of the Legislative Assembly. There's a degree of responsibility. He could simply not play politics. He could ask his deputy leader of the opposition, what did those talks include, and become, elucidated himself, and then be able to say to whether it's his constituent or otherwise, no, these aren't areas that were discussed as I have been made aware, and that'll be the end of the discussion. But it's not politic to leave things there. We have to fan the flames, and this is where I believe those unnecessary conversations are allowed to last longer than they need to. Again, to the point of the Premier being extended past 2 terms, I can state unequivocally, and the Premier has stated unequivocally, he has no intentions of changing that requirement. He certainly doesn't want to be Premier for a 3rd term. He will be stepping down as Premier at the end of this administration's, as per the Constitution, and nowhere in the constitutional amendments does it seek to change that. Now, there have been, desires, perhaps by some members of the community, saying, listen, we like the current government arrangement. We like and we have confidence in our current Premier and the leadership, and we would like to have that continued. Those are expressions being made by members of the public and perhaps even quietly by some members within the government. But it is not something that is being included in those constitutional discussions, because the Premier has stated unequivocally that he has no intention of making that amendment, because he's frankly looking forward to demitting that responsibility and passing the yoke on to a successor or to the next Premier.
And he was one of those during the constitutional negotiations
that put it in place in the first place.
Lead the charge to have that in there.
Yes, quite right. He to say that the Honourable Premier, the Honourable Alden McLaughlin, is, one of the original crafters of the Constitution in which we hold today, that is not an overreach at all. Right. That is absolutely correct. Yes. And any restriction on the tenure, on the term of a Premier came at his and that team's recommendations at that time. So again, there's some conversations that we as representatives have a responsibility to quell, to put fires out. But unfortunately, and again, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. Politics is politics. We do what we must. But I think, oftentimes there are members that have the fire extinguisher readily available to them. They could use it at any point in time. But instead of dashing fire retardant,
they throw this extinguisher away and
say fire! Bring that can of gasoline, throw it all in. Now that's a fire, So that makes for politics. That makes it exciting. That gives people platforms to talk on. But again, I just think, as a representative, and again, I'm speaking with 2 years' experience under my belt. So some might say, "Who am I?" But I just think that I take my responsibility seriously enough to say that not everything has to be about politics.
Yep. Okay. One more commercial break, folks. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
They say cleaning your house never killed anyone, but why take chances? Spend your time doing what you love and leave the rest to Roper's Janitorial. Complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential with 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Take back your life and get the job done right the first time. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
At Logic, we make things better for our customers. It's why we're offering free Boost Wi-Fi. With Boost, you get improved Wi-Fi connectivity everywhere in your home, so there's no more dead zones. The only people we're not making this better for is parents. Because now with seamless Wi-Fi in every room in your home, go to your room isn't really the punishment it used to be. Sorry about that. Sign up now for any Logic bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. We have one caller who has rejoined us. Caller, good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, OC, again, and good morning to my good colleague, Austin Harris.
Mm-hmm.
I must say I'm glad to see that he understands the full play of politics quite well, and he's well versed in it because he played a little bit himself just now. But that's okay. I understand the politics of things. But I think it's fair to say, though, that, and he would agree with me on this if he's going to be honest, that at the time of those negotiations, I was not a part of the opposition. So my only commitment was to the parameters of the overreach of the UK and nothing else. Now, in respect to the other topics, in respect to Mr. Ezed Miller, do you think, I want to ask a legitimate question here, I'm not trying to be facetious in any way, but if Mr. Miller did not get full agreement of all the other members, would he be wrong in his duties in the negotiations?
Sorry, say again? If he didn't get what?
If Mr. Miller, who is now a supporter of your administration, did not get full agreement of the other members of opposition in those negotiations in the UK, would he be wrong?
Would he be wrong? I think, I think one thing is for certain that it has been proven in the last 2 years that finding majority agreement in the opposition benches in particular is easier said than done. Whether or not your previous leader of the opposition and your current deputy leader of the opposition received the consent and agreement of the 6 members or 5 members at the time, members of the opposition, based on those constitutional discussions is not something that I can answer. I would not know. To your previous point regarding your remarks that you were not a member of the opposition at the time, but certainly you are a member of the opposition now. And when questions relating to, as you pointed out, the constitutional modernization and have we exceeded the remit of what the people were aware of, again, when faced with those questions, instead of fanning the flames, as unfortunately regularly happens in politics, the short answer would be, I am not aware, but let me inquire of my deputy leader who was present, and I'll provide you with the answer. And, again, that's what I mean by saying we can either choose to extinguish the fires as responsible members of the Legislative Assembly, or we can fan the flames of politics because it's politic.
Okay, well, allow me to respond, because at no stage did I say I didn't know what negotiations were. What I suggested is those negotiations weren't talked with the people of this country. I'm no silly politician. I know exactly what was discussed. What I have a problem with is those negotiations weren't discussed with the people. And I want to clarify again that my commitment on behalf of the people of Georgetown Central was on the going outside the parameters of beneficial ownership was not included. So, yes, I have spoken to the opposition leader, but you haven't answered the question. If the opposition leader negotiated without the support of his members, would he be wrong? It's a simple yes or no question, Mr. Austin. And if you don't want to answer it, that's fine. But I think we will deal with this problem in the near future. The problem is, when you're dealing with constitutional changes, regardless of what they are, it's important that you speak to your people of your country first to get their buy-in, or at least give them the reasoning behind your suggestions to those changes. Yes. So I am just like you, obligated to making sure that things are confidential, and I'm not going to suggest what I know those discussions were publicly until the governor does so or the premier does so.
Right.
But don't make it suggest like as if to say that I am not in conversation with my deputy leader, because I have.
Right.
So you can answer the question about Mr. Miller now if you like.
Well, certainly, the opposition, whether it would be 5 at that time or now 6, got together and put their support behind a leader. That leader at the time was the Honourable Ezra Miller and still is the Honourable Alva Suku. When a group, much like the government, picks a premier or a leader, we put our trust and faith in that leader to do just that, lead. In some circumstances, we have to trust those leaders to exercise their discretion as leaders. And certainly in the case of your question, if the leader of the opposition did not first inform and then secondly receive the consent of his larger or wider opposition group, well, in the first instance, that wouldn't be restricted just to the leader of the opposition, because the deputy leader of the opposition would have a responsibility therein as well. But whether or not he or they fail to inform their team of what those discussions were, that's a question for the individual to answer. It's not for me to sit here and say whether it's right or whether it's wrong.
Okay, so if your premier did that without negotiations with you, you would be okay with that?
Well, again, it would have to be, I would have to weight it in terms of what did he do? What was the overreach? Was it a minor change that came up as a result of those negotiations, or was it a major change that was always part of an intent but decided to not be shared with the wider body? I mean, I can't answer a general question like the one you're asking. I just can't, because, I just can't.
Fair enough, member, and I would not take up any more of your time, but I guess we'll find out when the discussions come public as to whether they're major or whether they're minor, or whether the people should have a choice in not only the politicians. Mr. O.C., Mr. Moderator, and my good friend and colleague, Austin Harris, thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your show.
And you do the same as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think what is important, and we'll move on from the topic eventually, is that it is important for people to also understand that at some point in time, the relevant point, the public will have their say in this. What the Constitution says that any changes that the it's not the Constitution. I'm sorry, the side letter that was issued, anything that was minor, that was agreed upon by the opposition, leader of the opposition, and the premier, could move forward. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will result in a constitutional amendment. They have agreed to those discussions with the UK in that regard.
Yes.
Not to say that it won't eventually come back to the people for them to make a final decision on it.
And that's what I meant by the discretion of leadership. We have to trust those that we nominate or elect to be our leaders of any group, whether it be the premier, the leader of the opposition, the head of a company or otherwise. When these discussions are live and you're making an attempt to improve your position, sometimes we trust their discretion. But to your point, the Constitution requires that there be agreement, not just by the government, the governing body, but agreement to include the opposition. So that's where the bipartisanship comes into play here, the part that the member from Georgetown Central might not otherwise be giving due credence to. Any changes that were discussed as they impact the people of the Cayman Islands must first be agreed upon by the two figureheads that make up the government, that on the premier on the government side and that on the opposition side. So we have achieved that. Certainly to your point, once these minor changes, whatever they may be, find agreement with the relevant bodies, including the UK and the governor, who has therefore have to assent to it, what I suspect and what I expect to happen is that once that has been achieved, then this body, my leader, the premier, has an obligation to share those details with the Legislative Assembly, at which time a debate will begin to take place on those respective changes. And in that debate, it is that debate that enables the people's wishes to be heard vis-a-vis their elected representatives. And I suspect that is exactly the course in which these discussions will take place. I have not seen any indication from our leadership side or even the opposition leadership side that suggests to me an authoritarian type of leadership style, a dictator type of leadership style, do as I say, not as I do type of situation, but quite to the contrary, a very inclusive decision-making process. And yes, even in the Legislative Assembly, where we take debates on things of national importance, as we did certainly following the same-sex ruling, which consisted of 2 days of conscience votes, debates on that point. So I believe in the last 2 years, the Legislative Assembly has proven that it exists to serve the best interest of the people of this country. As it relates to the constitutional modernization process, I simply state to the member from Georgetown Central, who never misses an opportunity to engage on the microphone or any platform, that whatever those conversations are, whatever those improvements or enhancements are, have been agreed by both sides. But are they written in stone? No. Before those changes can take effect or actually be implemented, a broader discussion must take place, and that's what I'm expecting to happen. And I'm under no illusions that won't happen. I believe it very will happen because, again, it is just the experience that I've had in these last 2 years being on the government side. Everything is revealed. Nothing is withheld. Everything is on the table. There's just a fine line between what can be discussed publicly and that which is otherwise considered confidential for a time.
Mm-hmm. And one thing is certain, the UK would not engage in any discussions in terms of constitutional changes in the absence of the opposition. They would not do it unilaterally with the government and not include the opposition when it comes to constitutional negotiations.
That is correct.
Time for us to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. The conversation with MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris will continue after this short commercial break.
I just love the warm ocean air.
Yeah? Your car doesn't.
What you mean?
Looks like salt air is eating your bump alive.
Stop rust before it starts with Z-Bot Rust Protection from Vant Motors. The extreme heat, salt spray, and wet tropical weather can damage your vehicle and greatly decrease its value. But Z-Bot's patented formula protects your car's metal seams, joints, and other hidden areas. There's no better rust protection out there than Z-Bot. So book today and keep the rust away. Call or visit Vant Motors Body Shop on Walker's Road. Your only authorized Z-Bot service in Cayman is now available at Vant Motors.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the Record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We have less than half an hour left on the show. We're going to continue the discussion on the bills going before the Legislative Assembly. And as promised, I also want to give Mr. Harris an opportunity as a member of the Legislative Assembly to talk a little bit about his constituency as well. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, O.C. Again, always a pleasure to stick around, and certainly thank you to the callers for their questions and comments. We've covered the 13 various bills that impact financial services, but I just want to get back to a comment that you made earlier on, that these changes particular to the effectiveness of our compliance grading is not just impacting the Cayman Islands. I received a message directly from the Minister of Financial Services whilst we were on the air, who says that 80 to 90% of the countries reviewed in this critical evaluation by the CFATF all fall into the enhanced follow-up category. Okay. So 90% of the jurisdictions involved in this now otherwise new global standard are still falling short of the mark. So it would not be an incorrect statement to state that 90% of the jurisdictions on that list are engaged in exactly what we are, and that is filling those gaps through legislation. Yes. From the Cayman Islands standpoint, I talked about the good technical compliance that we have maintained through the years. The Cayman Islands has a culture of compliance, and we continue to evolve and adapt those standards as we go along. And I think that once we've finished this most recent round of Legislative Assembly meetings and passed the various amendments on those 13 bills that I highlighted earlier on, we will be even closer to fulfilling the mark that is set by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, and hopefully keep us certainly keep us out of the blacklist category. Two more bills will come before the Legislative Assembly that are not related to financial services. One that I think will certainly impact a wide number of persons, that is the amendments to the Public Service Pensions Law, which will be the Public Service Pensions Amendment Bill 2019. In this amendment, we seek to change the manner of calculating pensions to provide for longer periods for cash-out payments, specifically for non-residents, non-Caymanians who have either left the service or who have left the jurisdiction. It is also seeking to secure assets of the fund by enabling investment diversification in accordance with recognized international best practice. And when we say, to enable investment diversification, I want it to be stated clearly that the goal here is to ensure that no undue risk of loss impacts the fund in those investment decisions. Whilst I believe whether it be the public service or the private sector pension plans, most of the investments are conservative in nature simply because of that risk exposure which they want to limit. We know that pension funds will gain and will lose from time to time based on the investments at any time. That is very normal.
You got to be in there for the long haul.
Exactly. You're in it for the long haul, and in that long haul view, you want to make sure that in your investment portfolio decisions that you limit your exposure to risk, and that is what the amendments seek to accomplish. Also, we will be seeking to amend Section 6 of the Public Service Pensions Law that provides that the board shall be responsible for oversight and monitoring of the administrator, the investment committee, and or any other committee or subcommittee. So they have overall oversight and guardianship, if you will, of the public service pension funds. And it provides that when the board is exercising its fiduciary responsibility, it shall do so in the best interest of the plan members and the plan beneficiaries of the fund, not the administrators, not in the best interest of the investment managers, but in the best interest of the plan members. So those are some of the changes that will be debated as part of the Public Service Pensions Amendment Bill 2019. And last but certainly not least, the Public Lands Amendment Bill 2019, rounding off the list of 15 bills that will be debated in the House as of Wednesday. This seeks to provide for a change in the composition of the membership of the Public Lands Commission to allow members of the Commission who are not civil servants to assume the titles of chairman, chairperson, and deputy chairperson. Again, unless it's written in the law, you can't just make these changes. Yes. That concludes the majority of the bills that will be debated in the House and hopefully voted on and approved. There will be a further 9 business papers and reports. If I can just go over them very quickly. We have the Government Minute, which is the government's response to the Public Accounts Committee report on the Auditor General's report on financial reporting of the Cayman Islands government, 2015 to 2016 and 2017 to 2019. Obviously, the PAC held hearings on this, and of course the government, as per the law, has an obligation to respond to the recommendations of the Public Accounts Committee, and that will be tabled. Likewise, the financial statements for the Ministry of Community Affairs as of the 31st December 2018 will be tabled, along with the 2018 annual report of the Ministry of Community Affairs. We also have the 2018 annual report of the Public Service Pension Board, the 2016-2017 annual report of the Portfolio of Legal Affairs, the 2016-2017 annual report of the Tourism Attraction Board, the 2016-2017 annual report of the Water Authority of the Cayman Islands, the financial statements for the Health Services Authority as at 31st December 2017, and the 2016-2017 annual report of the HSA. Once, of course, these documents are tabled or laid on the table in the Legislative Assembly, they thereafter go on to become public documents, so members of the public, talk show hosts like yourself, will have access to them, and I'm sure, continuing in your usual fashion, you will inform your listeners accordingly.
Certainly. Thank you. We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Orrett Connor.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Okay, and good morning, MLA, Mr. Austin Harris.
Good morning to you, my friend. Thank you for your call.
You're welcome. But Mr. Harris, right now the banks, I would say not dealing fairly or dealing right when it comes to certain things that they're doing. For example, if you take $10 worth of quarters to the bank, they automatically take $2.50 for themselves. And that's not right. And if my grandson was to save $1,000 worth of quarters and take it to the bank, that means that the bank will automatically take $250 for themselves, even if my grandson took 4 to 5 years to save that money. So, I'm asking you as a member of the Legislative Assembly here today to bring it to the floor of the House concerning this situation and deal with it the right way and deal with it in a way that you know is fair. And it's not fair what they're doing. It's not right what they're doing. And if you all continue to allow them to do so, you all will be encouraging them to be legal thieves.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, caller. And I certainly agree with your frustrations relevant to some of the bank fees for transactions and whatnot. I believe them to be unreasonable. And I can say to you that members of my unity government also believes them to be unfair and unreasonable. Whilst those amendments that we talked about this morning deal directly with the more pressing priority of making sure that we have a financial services industry tomorrow in which to operate both locally and internationally. But I can tell you with every confidence that the present Minister of Financial Services, the Honourable Tara Rivers, is working on a number of amendments and discussions to address those fees as they relate to cashing checks drawn from another bank or even bank account holders being able to, cash a check over the counter. No one in the unity government embraces what the banks are doing. We hear the same frustrations that you have shared with the listening audience from our own constituents who have to go to the bank as well and who deal with these frustrations. And it's certainly something I can tell you that the government has on its radar, and you can anticipate that before we demit office, that efforts will be made to address this from the floor of the Legislative Assembly if necessary. But certainly the government shares your frustration, as do all of our constituents. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. What we can do now, if we take the quick commercial break now, then we can devote the last 15 minutes for you to talk about your constituents.
Sure, thank you.
Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct? So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
Traffic congestion is bad for your mental health, bad for your wallet, and bad for the environment. Alternative commuting habits are the solution. Cycling, walking, busing, or carpooling will help save you money, benefit your health, conserve energy, and help the environment. Do your part. Visit the Ministry Facebook page for details of plans for bicycle lanes, the latest bus schedules, and be an energy advocate.
K-Man is going to Carifesta 2019 this summer. Get a sneak peek preview of all performances we'll be doing in Trinidad. 2 weekends only at the Hartwell Theatre. Music and dance shows on Saturday the 20th of July and Sunday the 21st of July. The touching play, Downside Up, written by Frank McFeel on Saturday, July 27th and Sunday, July 28th. Tickets are just $25 per person per show. Purchase at Foster's Airport and Strand, Funky Tangs, Healthcare Pharmacy Grand Harbor, the CNCF office, and online at eventpro.ky.
This is Caitlin Tyson, your reigning Miss Cayman Islands Universe, here to encourage you all to attend this year's pageant on Saturday, August 17th at the Ritz-Carlton Resort. It's going to be an amazing event. Tickets are on sale now at Sand Angels in Camana Bay and Funky Tangs in Georgetown. There's limited seating, so be sure to get yours soon. Thanks to our corporate sponsors, the Ministry and Department of Tourism, Cayman Airways, Hurley's Media, and Radio Cayman.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're on the final leg of the show this morning. Discussion taking place with MLA and Councillor Mr. Austin Harris. Before I throw the mic back over to him, we'll close the phone lines off also. And before I throw the mic back over to him, we want to, I understand that Brother Chris is celebrating a birthday today, and we want to wish Brother Chris a very, very happy birthday as well. And whatever you do, please do it in moderation because you still have, you're expecting to have many, many more birthdays as well. So you don't want to burn it all up, on one birthday as well.
That's
but
right.
Happy birthday to Brother Chris, Mr. Harris.
Indeed, certainly let me join in those birthday salutations, wishing Brother Chris a very happy birthday and again, take OC's advice. Well, certainly it's been a pleasure being invited in your studios once again and taking the opportunity to inform the public of the business of the Legislative Assembly, which will again commence on Wednesday, the 24th of July at 10 a.m. Hopefully it will be a successful sitting of the Legislative Assembly. Coming up tomorrow at the constituency level, again, I would like to continue to encourage and invite constituents of both Red Bay and Prospect to attend a public meeting hosted by the Premier, the Honourable Alden McLaughlin, and MLA for Red Bay, and myself for the MLA for Prospect, as we make a presentation by the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure will be our special invited guests tonight, who will be making a presentation on the ongoing and planned roadworks that will impact constituents of Red Bay and Prospect in particular, but also we believe have a positive impact on those constituents in the eastern districts as well. Improvements are planned for roadworks from the Hurley's roundabout all the way up to the east-west arterial and to include plans for the extension of that east-west arterial, I believe, as far up as Frank Sound. But we will have those presentations and discussions this evening at 7 o'clock. Members of both constituencies are invited to attend. Light refreshments will be served, and I think we'll have a vibrant discussion. Tomorrow evening, Tuesday evening. Thank you very much. OC, I may have had a slip of the lip there. Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. In terms of my own constituency Prospect, I continue to express my thanks to both the NRA and the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure. We've had a number of road improvements. Shortly after taking office in 2017, the very first road improvement project that took place at any constituency level took place in Prospect with the resurfacing of Mangrove Avenue. The entire length of that road was resurfaced, chip and spray put down on that road in order to benefit residents of that area. Of course, in Prospect, as I suspect throughout most of the constituencies in Cayman, the little quiet neighborhoods, been a number of calls for speed bumps to restrict the speed of cars, particularly that go through at the nighttime. And certainly there has been a question in Prospect, like it has been everywhere else. As it relates to speed bumps, as I've explained to my constituents, in order to get speed bumps on any given road, we must first have a sign petitioned by 3/4 of the residents of that area signing to be in agreement. So until we have those physical signatures of any particular road, we won't see these speed bumps installed. And this is an NRA requirement. Which is why
no verification of signatures, though.
No, not at that stage. It's a simple name and address, and of course, NRA is going to verify that the persons reside in that particular area.
Yes.
But they're just looking for consent from at least three-quarters of the members that they're all in support of speed bumps. Whilst we've had requests on a number of roads in Prospect. We have had success in the installation of 3 road speed bumps along Almond Avenue, where, again, the majority of the residents on that street demonstrated their support. We are continuing the exercise for Marina Drive, for Mahogany Drive, for parts of Frank Hall, which would be considered Paradise Palms, and other areas. It is a slow process, but we continue to work at it. We are also continuing to work in collaboration with our neighborhood community police officer, of which I would like to congratulate and name. PC Christopher Donaldson has been absolutely tremendous. He is the dedicated community police officer for both Red Bay and Prospect. He engages on a monthly basis with our Red Bay Prospect community group. He engages on a daily, if not weekly basis with individual members of the community in walkthroughs and cycle-throughs together with other members of the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service community policing department, which of course is led by Inspector Courtney Miles, who is also, again, a continued dedicated officer and giving great support to Prospect in particular. We have had success in the formation of a number of neighborhood watches in the last 2 years, most recently in Bedrock Circle, where we recently launched and celebrated a new neighborhood watch, which again encourages members of the community. As I've always said since taking office, when it comes down to community policing, who better to know a stranger than the people who live in that neighborhood? They're going to be able to identify a stranger in their midst faster than I would. So by getting members of individual communities together, the easy way to do it is, we all have a smartphone. We establish a WhatsApp group, and now we're communicating with our neighbors. Yes, it is to identify threats that would put various neighbors on notice. But I think one of the benefits that come out of these little WhatsApp groups is it brings neighbors together for a variety of reasons. Now you know what your neighbor's name is. Now you know what they're thinking on various subjects, and you're communicating with them more regularly than before. So you're increasing your friendships, which is also building your communities. And Prospect has a proud community of some wonderful people who are doing some wonderful works, not least of which, of course, the Prospect Red Bay Community Group, which continues to organize various garbage cleanups, getting ready for, again, another Earth Day, as well as working in collaboration with the Nice Summer Cleanup. Over the last 2 years, we've also made some tremendous progress in addressing the littering problem in Prospect. Whilst much of our littering problem, particularly along the east-west arterial, comes from a transient audience. When I say that, not necessarily people living in Red Bay or Prospect, but driving through it and tossing, garbage out their window. Again, working in collaboration with the Department of Environmental Health, I have been successful in installing some 13 no littering signs across Prospect. That is spanning from Marina Drive all the way up to Spots Newlands, in visible areas and areas which have been known to be garbage drop-off spots, so that, again, it is intended as a deterrent, but also intended to help encourage members of the public when they see littering taking place. They can call either their dedicated community police officer or me, the MLA, or even 911 to have these things reported. Last but not least, at tomorrow night's meeting, in addition to the road improvement plans that members of the Red Bay and Prospect communities will have an opportunity to enjoy, we will also be providing our constituents with an update in terms of the Red Bay Prospect Park. which is slated to go down over, I think it's 2 or 3 acres. It's a large park. We just last week had an opportunity to review the design plans, which we will be unveiling to members at our meeting tomorrow night, so that they can also see what that's going to look like. That will constitute the bulk of the major park for both Red Bay and Prospect. There are a number of parcels within Prospect proper. I've identified 3 properties that are Crown land properties that I'm in the process now of clearing, not in the process of clearing, but getting authorization to clear so that we can, again, have greater public open space within our communities. That process is moving swiftly along, and I hope to, in short order, hopefully by the end of the year, have something positive to report in that regard as well. But certainly I just want to use this opportunity to thank the constituents who I have the pleasure to represent for being involved. We have a very active Prospect and Red Bay community group. They meet the first Monday of every month at the Seafarers Hall. It is run by an executive committee that are diligent and go about their tasks with integrity. We are connecting people to each other again through technology. WhatsApp groups, very useful, but it allows the community to start talking to each other, allows the community to start knowing each other's names. It allows the community to share common challenges, but also successes. And we have seen some of these in Prospect, and I anticipate more will follow. Certainly part of the roadworks plan will see an expansion of the east-west arterial, which in one context, I believe, will limit the amount of traffic that we see cutting through some of the properties in Prospect, which we had, I think, along Poindexter at the beginning of last year, some police presence trying to restrict that movement. We continue to thank the police for whenever they're available to reduce that as much as possible. And I think, again, these will be one of the areas that we can talk about in terms of, how much of a problem it continues to be, or if, in fact, we still require greater police presence, particularly in the mornings. Traffic impacts all of us, and we're doing what we can to address that. Oh, last but not least, it is the rainy season, and again, we want to continue to thank Public Works for conducting the usual drain clearance exercises that they do across the island. That has also included Prospect. Whilst not all of the drains have been gotten to yet, but they are on the list. So, if you're on Marina Drive or Mahogany and you have a problem area, certainly if you have a problem drain that you've identified that is clogged and needs to be done as a matter of urgency, you can reach out to me, 928-2562, or you can email me at austin.harris@gov.ky, and I will certainly add it to my list. Otherwise, again, to just ensure residents that these exercises of drain clearances are ongoing as part of the rainy season, as is the exercise of installing new drains. Just recently, I requested for at least 2 drains on the Raven Avenue area of Prospect, which again have been identified to me by constituents, areas that have been prone to flooding, and those requests for these new holes or new drains to be dug have been submitted, and hopefully we'll have a timeline. Again, both Public Works and the NRA have been fantastic to work with, and they've always kept me informed in terms of when these works can be completed, so I can then in turn inform my constituents. Sure. So I'm very grateful for those other government departments that we have the pleasure of working with. New lighting certainly has been a request in certain areas, certain roads. If I can think of a few of them off the top of my head, I can't off the top of my head, but I know we've installed a number of new lights. These, of course, are the CUC LED lights, street lights throughout the community. We have requests, of course, not only for Shamrock Road, but for more lighting along the east-west arterial. I've taken these requests under advisement and certainly have shared them with the NRA. I just want to point out that, of course, whenever a person requests a new light pole, it has to go through the approval process first of the NRA and then on to the utility company for the installation. But why it has to go through the process is that government is paying for these lights. So we have to make sure that A, there's a need for it, B, there's a budgetary allotment in order to afford it, and then of course we have to put the order in to actually have those lights installed by the utility provider, and sometimes that takes time. I acknowledge that. The installation of new lights has not happened as quickly as perhaps the installation of drain clearance or otherwise, but it is happening, and again, I just simply encourage members of the Prospect constituency to reach out to me if you have any questions. Reach out to me if you have any urgent, pressing needs. I'm on all of the WhatsApp chat groups, whether it be by community or at the major Prospect Red Bay community group level. And again, I give my phone number, 928-2562, available to my constituents in Prospect, or you can email me at austin.harris@gov.ky. And I do hope to see as many of you as possible tomorrow night at our public meeting, which will be held at the Seafarers Hall.
Mr. Harris, again, I want to thank you for making yourself available. I want to thank you, our listening and viewing audience, for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to come to those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dwayne Banks at 12:15 for Talk Today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.